Good evening and welcome to tonight's driver's ed class. The last class of 2020. Next week we enter into 2021 and also our last week of class. So let's finish strong. So please sign in. And I'll wait for people. Good evening, good evening. While we're waiting for people to come on board, I only have one last drive time for this weekend. I have Saturday at 10 o'clock. So those that are coming on right now, you probably have dibs on that time. But tomorrow is booked. Taking Friday off, as I'm sure that you are. I hope you've had a great vacation. I know it's probably flown by. It's kind of rough that we have to meet here online to do the class here, but at least it's keeping us on schedule to finish up. People are doing a real good job driving. I mean, we're making some progress. I'm seeing less and less errors. I think the state will be quite pleased with your position, your speed. Parking is doing pretty good. I think I'm going to turn down the music here. This is kind of a funky jive. I told you I was going to mix it up with the music, so, give me thumbs up, thumbs down if you like the music or not. I guess, it's the DJ in me. I used to, when I was in college, do a little bit of DJing for dances, which was kind of cool. A fun thing to do. So I think we got just about, we're getting close to what we should have here for class. So let's kind of just bring this down a little bit. Let me explain a few things. I was not able to post the questions from the chapter that we went over last night on bad weather conditions. So Tuesday's class, we'll be talking about insurance, and I'm going to lump like a whole bunch of questions together and just do a drop on the chapters that we've covered over the last three chapters. Although tonight I will have one for alcohol. I do know that I have one ready for alcohol. So we'll do that. What I did post on the remote driver's ed page, and some of you don't have access to that, go to page 285 in responsible driving. And I believe there are like 10 or 12 questions. Really simple, just an overview of some of the information that we went over, or even some of the questions were directly from the textbook that I didn't cover, but it gives me an idea that if you do these questions that you at least did the reading. So if you have not done page 285, go to responsible driving. Text the answers to me if you want to do that, or write it down on a blank piece of paper, take a picture, and send it to me so I know that you did the reading and you have a basic understanding of some of the terminology and the techniques that we talked about last night. Well, tonight, if we were in a classroom, is one of the most interesting classes that I get to teach with driver's ed. For one thing, we have a classroom activity that, of course, since we're doing this online, that we can't do. But you've probably heard of drunk glasses. And what drunk glasses are is to give you the appearance of an intoxicated person. So what I do is I put you in the back of a classroom, and I put these goggles on you, and you try to maneuver your way in and out of chairs and desks. I try to toss you a tennis ball to see if you can track it and catch it, to give you some idea about slow down reflexes. So it gives you some idea of what it would be like if you were trying to get behind the wheel of a car and drive. Unfortunately, we can't do that. Now, if I can, School is still closed. Actually, I'll see if I have a pair. I might have a pair here in my office somewhere. I'm not quite sure whether I do or not. But if I do, I'll bring them into the car and I will let you try them out, not while we're driving, but in the parking lot. I'll let you put them on and look through the windshield and see what it would be like and think about what it would be like trying to drive. So that's the one thing that we're missing from tonight's class. The other thing is that I come from a background back in the 90s. For 5 years, I worked for the state of New Hampshire dealing with the drunk driving education course. So this subject is dear and near to my heart. I was somewhat instrumental with getting the interlock devices passed and hooked into vehicles, which is now an option that people have. And we'll talk a little bit about that later tonight. So for about 5 years, I had a direct contact with the state with what was going on with passing of laws and where we were going in the national level of drunk driving. Were cases getting worse? Were the convictions less? And how were we doing about changing the behavior of people getting behind the wheel of the car under the influence of alcohol and drugs? So I did that for a while. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. So we're going to split up tonight's class into two sections. The first half is we're going to talk about the behavior of drinking and driving. The second half, we're going to be talking about laws and penalties. Now, one of the things that I asked you to do was to look at the laws that were in the state manual and give an opinion of what could be done to change these laws, to change people's behavior. Now, the only reasons why we have laws on the book when it comes to driving is to change people's behavior. Think about speeding. Think about following too close. These are things we don't want people to do. So if we fine people, if we take away their license, if we make them take some type of remedial driver's ed program, are we making a difference in these people's attitudes so they won't repeat those actions? And that's really what we want to do with drunk driving too. Drunk driving and drug driving usually has bad consequences, which means that there are a lot of people that are injured and killed that were innocently on the roadways. And that's a shame, and it should not happen. This is something that's very preventable. Okay? If you want to drink, that's fine. But you should never leave wherever you're at to get into a vehicle to get home. All right? Now, what I want you to do on a blank piece of paper, I'm hitting my microphone. I want you to draw two circles, okay? And one circle, write the word driving. And then in the other circle, write drinking. Okay? Two circles. At the age of 16, you are eligible for a driver's license. That's why you're here. So under driving, we write the word 16. When it comes to drinking, legally, in every state, you'll be able to consume alcohol at the age of 21. Now, simple math. From 16 to 21, how many years? 5. So we're saying, why are we talking about drinking and driving now, Mr. Toll? I've got 5 years to worry about that. That is not going to be a problem for me until I get to be 21. In a perfect world, that would be a true statement. If we were to give you truth serum right now, and I ask the question, have you ever consumed alcohol? I should see on the YouTube channel here everybody's name coming down. No, 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 no. Everybody would have a no for that question, the answer to that question. No, I've never consumed alcohol. But in reality, we know that young people do. So if I was to ask, and I've been doing this for many, many years, and I've done this in class, and I'm not going to do it where it's online because I don't want anybody to see what's written next to how you would answer this question. But we've got a class of 14. I am almost betting. I'd almost bet my house on it. There's at least 7 of you that have had the taste of alcohol lingering in your mouth at some point. Now, whether it was because your parents let you do it, whether it was with friends, maybe you might have been alone, whatever reason, you have tried alcohol. Now, what we've got to do now is we've got to understand that we need to separate these two circles. They never can touch from 16 to 21. Okay, make me that promise that after tonight, and hopefully after you learn some of the consequences that could happen to you, you're never going to get behind the wheel of a vehicle under the influence of alcohol or drugs. So I don't want to judge you, and I don't want to judge your parents. What your parents let you do in your own house is totally up to them. But you need to understand that legally, you cannot consume alcohol till the age of 21, and you will be prosecuted if you're out in your vehicle with cans of unopened beer, if they're opened, if there's just a detection of odor of alcohol on your breath while you're driving, there will be consequences. So you're getting at the age where your older brothers and sisters are going off to college. Some of your friends have access to alcohol. The pull of peer pressure is going to pull you towards experimenting. Now, this I do want you to do, okay? And I want you to do it on your phone. I do not want it on YouTube. So what I want you to do right now, and let me write it down on my whiteboard here, kind of a small whiteboard. I think I want to get a stand-up desk and put a whiteboard back there, and I'll do a boom mic. But what I want you to do is I want you to write down the word why and why not. And I want you to give me one reason why you think people consume alcohol. What's the pull? What's the draw? What's the big hoop to do? Why do people drink alcohol? And then I want you to give me one reason why not. Usually if we're in class, I ask for more reasons, but I figured with 14, 15 people, they're going to be different answers. But I want you to do it over your phone. You don't have to do it on YouTube. I mean, if you want to do it on YouTube, where it pops up, because it's not saying one way or the other how you feel about the subject, but I want you to do it that way. Because peer pressure is not only positive, it can be negative. And a lot of times we just focus on the negative part. I think what we got to focus on tonight is hanging around people that is going to help you choose and make safe driving decisions when it comes around alcohol. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time so I can see my phone light up with what you have for an answer for why and why not. My phone keeps turning off on me. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of time. Okay, I got a couple of responses so far. Very good. Yep. Okay, relieves stress, loosens people up. They don't want to get in trouble. Legal consequences, especially from parents. That is so true. What else do we have for reasons why? So you got to give me some help here. So you got to write some stuff down. That way I can say that you guys were participating in class. Okay, drinking with meals, good. Yeah, I like that one. Okay, fun. Yeah, loosen up. Yeah. Definitely people do it for an image thing. There's something about alcohol, having it in your hand at a party, whatever. It does kind of give the appearance that you're in the hip crowd. You got it all together. You're one of the special people. The interesting thing about getting that thrill or feeling happy, you've got to be careful with going towards alcohol or drugs to change your emotion, because that's how addiction happens, where you just continually have to have that drug to feel a certain way. So when you're not feeling that certain way, you're consuming more, and that's going to lead you into trouble. So here's our topic. I want to show you our first little clip.
Have a shot.
Here, drink some of this.
Have a shot.
The first time you do it, you put yourself at risk because it takes a toll.
I drink to experiment and also to relieve stress.
There's always a reason to do it. I'm stressed. I don't like my parents.
Everyone that goes to public school does monkey see, monkey do. You just want to fit in and you just want to try that out. Why is everybody else doing it? There must be something great about it.
I was 14 years old when I tried weed with my friends.
She had done it before I did, and she showed me and she said it was okay to do it, and she liked it. I tried it.
It was just a new feeling that I needed to explore further.
I started thinking if I only drank on the weekends, I wouldn't get addicted to drinking.
But I don't think I'll get addicted or to any type of drug.
In the beginning, I felt like I was controlling it, but after that, it got out of control. Like as I said before, I was high for 6 months.
It was every day. I'd be back there in the alley smoking weed with everybody else.
I drank so much that I started throwing up my stomach lining.
My health deteriorated. I've lost homes. I've never been able to hold a job. I've lived on the streets.
I ended up losing my scholarship in college.
Everything I wanted to be just went down the drain.
I could justify using in order to enjoy myself and other things.
Just felt like I was dying.
They opened the door for us, and she was dead on the bed with the needle in her arm.
Gave a shot of adrenaline to his heart, it flatlined and killed him right there.
But when it's all over, only person that's paying the price is you.
I think most people can go back in time to the first time that they tried alcohol. And it could have been with a parent, could have been with a friend, but we can always go back. We know our mind just kind of automatically just flips back to that time. And most people, and studies have shown, and New Hampshire does a survey, and I think you might have taken it in high school, that by the time that you're a sophomore in high school, about 62 to 65% of kids have at least tried alcohol. Now, I'm not talking about getting drunk, and I'm not talking about, having some real issues, but I'm talking about the curiosity of what does it really taste like? What is it going to do to me physically? What's the big deal about it? So I think that there's going to probably be of at least half of you, if you were to be honest with me, that you have tried it. And I think if you were honest with me, you would probably say, it was nasty. I really didn't like the taste of it. And depending on what you had to drink. And this is why high school kids a lot of times mask the flavor or the how bitter and what alcohol tastes like with something that is sweet and cold and something that they like. And that's the problem with it, because once you like something like rum and Coke, you like Coke so much that drinking a little bit of rum with it, it doesn't seem that bad. It seems a little bit different. And that's when you're going to start finding yourself feeling the effects of alcohol as you add more alcohol to it. So people have many reasons why they drink and why they don't. So I really don't want to key in too much about the reasons why, but I want to focus on the reasons why not. What I want you to write down in your notes, and I want you to really think about this, is that you're getting to a point in your life that you're going to be bestowed a lot of privileges. Driving is one of them. Going off to college is another, and some of you may enter the military, and that's another. So you're growing up. But everything that you choose to do as you get older will have consequences. For the most part, when you're younger, your parents kind of buffer you from, negative things. They only want you to experience positive things. But drinking and driving, or drugs and driving, or just drinking, or just doing drugs, I want you to write down in your notes, will have longer lasting negative effects than positive. Now, a lot of people write down the reasons why they drink or do drugs is because they want to fit in, they want to feel good, they want to relax, it's party time. All those things probably have some benefit. They do. At the right time, the right age, the right setting. But they're short-lived. The thing about drinking and drugging is short-lived. After the drug, it only has a certain life in your body. Once that is over, you've got to experience more of that to continue that feeling inside your body. Now, you may get to a state where you're not functioning to a level where you're able to drive. And that's what we've got to focus on tonight. I also want you to write down 4 terms, okay? I want you to write down non-user, social, problem, alcoholic, drug addict. There are only 4 categories when it comes to consuming alcohol and drugs. You're either a non-user, never have, never will. Social, meaning 1 or 2 drinks, maybe a few joints, maybe a little bit of drugs here or there, but it's nothing that controls your life. It's nothing that has caused any negative aspect. You still go to work, you go to school, you keep your grades up, you've got your friends, you don't get into arguments. You're probably going to be considered a social user. It's infrequent, never causing problems. A problem drinker or a problem user will start to have negative aspects creeping into your life. You never want to cross over from the social aspect to the problem aspect. Because when you get to be a problem drinker or a problem user, you're going to start seeing arguments. You're going to have your grades. I've never known anybody, and I dealt with mostly people that are drinking and driving. In the 5 years, I have never met a person that had a DWI and told me that their life was so much better after that happened. That they are so excited that this came into their life. It never happens. Never. People that consume alcohol and drugs and have problems with it, it's the beginning of addiction, being an alcoholic or a drug addict. And this, from non-user to social to problem to alcoholic, is a spectrum. And you are moving down the spectrum and headed in a direction you do not want to go. You basically want to stop this use in its tracks and not go any further. Now, some people, as you get older and get more mature, and I think it was Kathy that was changing the laws and came up with a real good change and talking about the brain not being fully developed until the age of 25 and then having some consequences. Good job on that. I like that because that is true. You're still at the age of 18, not fully developed with your mind, and you're not going to be making the best decisions. You've got to understand is that as you get older, reasoning and judgment starts to weigh more heavily on you, and you start to realize, I'm now 33, drinking with my friends every Friday and Saturday night and getting hung over. I'm not very good at work on Monday morning. When you're 33, that's kind of, you got to grow out of that. I think society takes a look at college kids, and kind of laugh at their drunken stupors and their activities, and it's just a period that they're going through. And for most of them, I would say that's probably true. But there will be some that never get out of that stage, and that's the way their life's going to be. And that's what we've got to focus on, is not letting ourselves get to that point. So let's talk about alcohol and what could happen.
Vodka,
Tequila,
scotch,
beer, wine,
rum,
gin,
whiskey, alcohol.
Alcohol probably took 20 years of my life, and you can't get that back.
Alcohol is a drug, which most people don't think it is, but it actually is. It's classed as a depressant, meaning it slows down vital functions in the body.
Alcohol is made through the fermentation of fruits and grains.
The process of fermentation is basically letting fruit sit and rot until it can produce a mind-altering effect when you drink it.
There's different types of things you can drink that have different amounts of alcohol in them. Like a beer, if you just drink beer, that has 2 to 6% alcohol. Wine is about 8 to 20% alcohol. And then you got your hard liquors, which are like vodka or whiskey, which are about 40 to 50% alcohol.
When someone drinks 2 or more drinks, it acts as a stimulant. When they drink more than that, it acts as a depressant.
If you binge drink, what you're doing is you're just drinking repeatedly over and over large amounts and large quantities of alcohol. If you put that much alcohol in your system at one time, you can get alcohol poisoning, which could lead you to go into a coma or even kill you.
12 years old, I was in the 7th grade.
When I was in 8th grade, I think I was 13 years old.
It became very regular at 14 years of age.
15 years old when I first started drinking.
17 years old, starting going out to parties, doing things like that.
At first, drinking was a sociable thing, you know, I drank with my friends.
Thought I was really cool going out with all the older guys, and I'd try to show off in front of them and drink myself stupid. I just go out and party all night.
By the time I was probably 15 is where I started drinking at school. Putting it in a water bottle, I would take vodka or gin, something clear that looked like water, and I would just drink in class and pop mints in my mouth.
We'd go in, break into his parents' liquor cabinet, fill up our super big gulps full of ice and Everclear, and then stop by 7-Eleven and fill the rest of it up with Coke, and then make it to first period.
I was drinking not just at parties and stuff, but after classes and after work and even at work.
I waited tables, so it was very easy access to alcohol.
It was just hard to say no. It was so readily available, and it was constantly there.
My drug problem wasn't something that happened immediately. It happened so slowly that I missed the fact that I was addicted to it.
It became a routine, a way of life.
The only type of people I would hang out with were people who were using drugs or drinking alcohol. And it got to the point where that's all I cared about.
It became far more than just a partying thing. It was a necessity.
Without having alcohol in me, I could not function.
I kind of became a loner because all I ever wanted to do was just drink and drink and drink.
It felt like it was my only friend. Felt like that it was always there for me somewhere. You know, when things were going bad, I could always have a few drinks. Well, for me, it was never a few drinks. It was always a lot of drinks.
I was consuming about 30 beers a day, a whole case of beer, and 3/4 of a gallon of light rum. I would essentially have that and black out every night.
I could do nothing but drink 24/7, drink, pass out, drink, pass out.
I literally started drinking so much that I would shake if I didn't have a drink.
When I would not drink, I'd get extremely sick, deathly sick.
Just really achy all over, and you have headaches, and you're so dehydrated that you have no energy.
Alcohol had been, in and out my body so much that it had tore away some of the lining of my esophagus, and blood was creeping in.
I was a physical disaster. I was that far in my addiction of physical withdrawal that when I shut that alcohol intake off, my body tried to shut down.
The actual withdrawal from alcohol can kill you, for one thing, if it's too intense. Your body has no vitamins or is dehydrated, and you can have DTs, you can seizure to death. That's terrible.
I got a phone call, that my father was in the hospital and that he was really, really sick, and that he wasn't going to make it. So the next day I got on a plane to go home, and my only way to confront this was to drink alcohol. So I showed up at the airport pretty drunk, and my family, saw me there, and, they didn't know what to say. The worst thing about it is that my father was kept conscious so that he could see me before he passed away. But instead of disgracing his memory, they'd put him on life support.
I had gotten kicked out of this bar for fighting. I was beyond drunk, and I was attacked and raped. And I went home and I stayed in my apartment for a week. My mom would come knocking on the door. I'd pretend I wasn't home. I felt like it was my fault. You know, I was the one that was at that bar. I was the one that was getting drunk.
I went home and I had a roommate. And for some reason, we got into an argument, which resulted in a fight, and the cops got called. I blacked out for part of it, so I couldn't figure out why I was waking up in jail.
I drank some beer there at the bar inside the airport. I just ordered another beer and put my backpack on and started walking through the terminal smoking a cigarette. I didn't care what I was supposed to be doing. And I ended up getting a fight with the police there at the airport. And I woke up in jail. I had staples in my head.
In the military, I woke up and I actually had to crawl on my hands and knees off the flight deck of the carrier because I couldn't walk, and then I got discharged from that and lost a girlfriend and a kid and my whole life.
I drank to blackout one night. Well, sometime about an hour later, I got back up. I went to my bedroom. My wife wasn't there. I went to the girls' bedroom, and they were all in the bed together, basically hiding from me through a blackout. And I decided right then that I couldn't stay there anymore. I was afraid I was going to hurt someone in a blackout.
You know, I haven't had a drink in 3 years, yet I'm reminded daily of my alcohol abuse because of the long-term effects. I have horrible short-term memory, and it makes everyday life very difficult for me. Just remembering names, remembering how to do things.
As a result of alcohol, I had high blood pressure, and I still have it.
Destroys your internal organs, and I mean, it can destroy your brain functions, your handwriting, small motor skills. It's definitely a poison.
I have liver pains, bone and muscle aches that just used to not be there, and it's not from age. I'm not that old. I should be in my prime right now, and I've probably aged myself 20 years through alcohol abuse.
Alcohol is slow to kill, but it's the most hideous form of death. If I had known how sneaky and dangerous and insidious alcohol is, if somebody had kind of told me, and if I had known that it's not this symbol for a good time, I think that would have made a difference.
It's not like some of the other drugs that instantly after your first time you're hooked and you're addicted to it. A lot of times, you know, most of my friends didn't even like the taste of beer when they first started drinking.
It started out as something that was fun, something we did on weekends. How it progressed to an everyday, all-day thing is beyond me. I have no answer to that. I do not understand how that happened, but it did.
It's nothing but misery. The last 12, 13 years of my life, I've spent probably over $500,000, and over 4 or 5 years of that has been institutionalized, whether it be in a alcohol treatment rehab facility or, you know, incarcerated.
Alcohol's just as bad, if not worse, than heroin or barbiturates or anything else. I don't know, if 60% of people go out to drink and get drunk, chances are that they're going to lead to something else and they're going to end up on a downward spiral.
I may not be very old, but I have definitely seen some hellish things from alcohol. To be honest, I didn't think someone could get to the point that I was at my age. I thought that took years and years, but no, downward spiral.
It might seem fun at the beginning, but after you get stuck in that lifestyle for years, you realize how not fun it is. It's terrifying.
Makes you want to sign up for that type of a life, doesn't it? See, we can show you commercials on TV at football games about everybody drinking beer and having a good time. Why don't they show you commercials about people that have lives ruined? You ever think about that? I guess they wouldn't sell much of their product, would they? But you've got to remember there's always a flip side to everything in life. So it baffles me that one of the guys in the video here said, I wish someone would have told me. What do you mean you wish someone would have told you? What, you living under a rock? I think most people know all these things. They just block it. They just stuff it. They don't want to deal with it. They only want to deal with, you know, what they think is the positive aspects. They really don't want to think about the negative consequences. And I think if we did, I think that we'd have less of a problem with drinking and driving. I want you to write down that alcohol is a depressant. That's the only thing I want from this slide. Basically, there's nothing beneficial to alcohol. It's just empty calories. And you probably heard the term, beer gut. So you're getting all the negative aspects of alcohol, how it's going to affect intoxication and stuff. And it's not anything that's helping your body maintain, its vitality. I'm going to go through some of this really quick. I know there's a lot of writing here. I just wanted to show on this slide basically that once alcohol enters your mouth, it does get absorbed through the lining of your mouth and your tongue, so people do smell alcohol. And don't be naive and think that if you were to consume, let's say, 2 or 3 sips of alcohol and you went to talk to somebody, that they're not going to smell that on your breath. Oh, yes, they will. If they get close enough to you, they will. People that drink don't think that other people can smell the alcohol. They really think that, they're fooling people. No one knows I've been drinking. Oh, yeah, we can tell. And I think some of you probably even know if you've got family members or been around other people. I know, like when I go to Fenway, this is a great example. I've gone to Fenway Park and I've sat out in the grandstands and people drink so much alcohol and it's so hot and sunny that their sweat smells like alcohol. Okay? That's disgusting. Okay? That's bad. Okay? So don't think that, drinking, no one's going to know. It doesn't affect any other part of my body. Oh, yes, it does. It affects everything. I guess the only thing I want you to write down from this slide, and I'll make it really quick, is that once alcohol reaches the small intestines, it starts being transported through your blood, throughout your body, and to your brain, and that's when it's going to affect your reasoning and judgment. So I want you to write down in your notes that reason and judgment is usually affected 20 to 40 minutes after you start drinking. And that's the one thing that you need to have when you drive. You need reasoning and judgment, because if you don't know when to pull out in front of cars, if you don't know your stopping distance, if you don't know how fast you're going to have problems. All right? Now, the other thing I want you to write from this is that the liver is the organ that basically oxidizes alcohol. It's the organ that we need to purify our body back to a normal state. And the only thing that I want you to know about the liver, and I'm going to make it real easy layman terms, it's going to take 1 drink or 1 hour per 1 drink. Okay, I'm not going to get into the percentages and everything else about the alcohol. Just know that 1 drink, 1 hour. And the other thing, when you hear the word a drink of alcohol, you can write this down. This is in the textbook too. You're going to have to do this for your reading if you haven't done the reading on alcohol. 12 ounces of beer, 5 ounces of wine, or 1.5 ounces of hard liquor. So we have 3 types of alcohol: beer, wine, hard liquor. Their serving size, 12 ounces for beer, 5 ounces for wine, 1.5 ounces for hard liquor, they will affect your body the same way. So a serving is a serving. Now, the problem with hard liquor and wine, and now even with beer, is that if the percentage of alcohol is higher or lower, it may change your metabolism a little bit. It could be worse or it could be better. So some beers are really strong, some are weak. Some wines are very potent with alcohol. Same thing with hard liquor. Could be very potent. Some could be kind of weak. So it gets kind of hard to figure out really what shape that you're in. I've always told adults, when I've spoken to adults, is that if you're consuming really more than like probably 2 drinks, 3 drinks in an evening, I probably wouldn't get behind the wheel of a car. And this is even for an adult. Okay? A person my size, I weigh over 200 pounds, I could probably consume 5, 6 drinks and still be under the legal limit of drinking, what's allowed for drinking and driving. But I never would ever get to that point. Never, ever. Don't think I have, actually, at least since I've been married, because you just don't want to find yourself in that situation. Now, the problem with the alcohol getting to the brain 24 minutes, so if you're drinking and you're drinking kind of quick, you're not really thinking about how that alcohol is going to affect you a half hour from now. You just downed, a glass of spiked punch, because you were getting ready to go play ping pong with friends or whatever. You go, let me just finish this drink real quick. And you don't realize, 20, 40 minutes, now it's really going to have its true effect on your body. People can drink alcohol pretty quick. I don't know if anybody has stories, but no, I'll tell you one when I was working with the state. It totally baffled me. I was up near Dartmouth, and I was sitting on one of the alcohol classes, and this is where people share about their drunk driving conviction and what their life is like and, what led to the drunk driving conviction. We had an individual in class that said the day that he was arrested was early afternoon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and his BAC level was like a 0.32. I mean, it was off the charts. And we're going to talk about BAC levels in a minute. But to put it in layman's terms, so you can kind of figure out how much alcohol he consumed, that if you know what a case of beer is 24 cans of beer. He had consumed by noontime 24 cans of beer. By noon. Here's a guy that has an alcohol problem. Can you imagine that? All right, so his 20, 40 minutes, he was totally off the chart. Okay, he had to have that alcohol in his system for him to just function. He said he drank that way almost every other day, every day. So it goes through the body, through the liver, oxidizes out. It's broken down there. We do excrete some of it through our breath, perspiration, and urination. But our body, remember, alcohol is not something that we need. You can go a lifetime and never consume alcohol. I have never known my parents, but both my parents are in their 80s. They're both living, and I have never even seen my dad take a glass of wine or champagne at a wedding and put it to his lips. Ever. Never. So some people, they never have that problem. They just don't want to try alcohol, and that's fine. That's good. And I think people should, make the decision based on what, their lifestyle is. But I think other people that want to drink alcohol responsibly have to realize what their limit is and stick to it. Because once you get above the limit, that's when the negative consequences are going to happen. Here are some of the things that if you drink on a long-term basis, how it's going to affect your system. There isn't an organ or a system in our body that doesn't have negative aspects to alcohol. I want to talk about blood alcohol. I want you to write this down. You need to know this for the final. BAC stands for blood alcohol content or blood alcohol concentration. And as it's like, it's like 1 drop of pure alcohol to 1,000 drops of blood. It is an equation. It's a chemical equation. So they're measuring the blood alcohol concentration at the time of an arrest. So when they arrest you, they have 3 tests that they can give you. They can give you a breath test, which they do normally. You could still figure out what the blood alcohol content by the breath concentration. They may take a blood test if you've been involved in an accident, or they can do a urine test. So they're going to tell your intoxication from those levels. So I'm going to show you the stages of influence, and all I want you to do is to write down the top description. I want you to understand how your body is going to react to having alcohol enter your system. So just write down the top. Okay, the first thing I want you to write down is sobriety. So if an adult over 21 has a drink of alcohol at a restaurant, they are going to probably be there for at least an hour, maybe more than an hour. They're going to be fine to get behind the wheel of a car. Their body is going to be of sound mind. Physical capabilities, reflexes will be fine. So most adults can have a drink or 2. Maybe even larger vehicles may get up to around 3. And if they were to take a chemical test, they would not go above that 0.05. And the state would not arrest you for drinking and driving at a 0.05. Usually at 0.05 above, depending if you ran into somebody, then they may try to pull in that you were probably not in the best shape. But what I want you to write down in your notes, 0.08, and this will be the next slide. And notice there's a range. But what I want you to realize that, and this was in your manual, at 0.08%, 0.08%, nobody in any state, from Maine to Florida to California, there's not a state that allows you to be behind the wheel at a level higher than a 0.08. You could be driving like a saint, using your directional, going the speed limit, good following distance, but the police officer noticed that you didn't get your car inspected. So it pulls you over for bad inspection. But he notices that you have an odor of alcohol in your breath. Guess what? You could get arrested and charged for drinking and driving. You're not supposed to be behind the wheel of the car when you're at that high level. So you've got to know your body. You've got to know how many drinks that you've consumed. So what most people feel at this euphoria, and that's the term that you hear a lot, is buzzed. The person feels buzzed. Okay? That's mild euphoria. That's what people drink for, is that sociability of alcohol, which it does provide. People will get a little talkative. You get that self-confidence that you didn't have. This is where people get dared into doing things. So decreased inhibitions. But if you only have 2 or 3 drinks, you probably will stay in this level. But if you start getting at a higher volume of alcohol, then you're going to start going into these stages. So 0.09, everybody in every state is above the legal limit. At 0.25, you're probably not even, most of people aren't going to be walking straight. So let's see what some of the characteristics of a high BAC level here. Decreased inhibitions, loss of critical judgment, impaired memory, decreased sensory response. So that means that people talk to you, you don't respond. People touch you and you don't know that they're tapping you on the shoulder. Muscular incoordination. Now, I don't know if you want to try this or not, but I'll tell you, if you want to know what it really feels like, and I'm not lying, if you want to know what this feels like to be drunk at this level, stand up, twirl around 10 times real fast in an open area, and then try to walk. This is what you would look like at a 0.25. No lie. That's exactly how you're going to feel. You're going to be tipsy. You can't walk straight. You're leaning. You try to sit down and the room is moving. You're thinking, I'm not moving. Why is the room moving? That's what's going to happen. And all of a sudden you're going to go, I don't like this feeling anymore. I like the feeling that I had about an hour ago when I was really talkative and having fun. Can I go back to that stage? Sorry, you can't. So when you drink too much alcohol, you've got to go through the whole gamut of these characteristics. Hopefully you won't get sick. You've probably heard of people having hangovers and throwing up. Remember, alcohol's poison. Your body doesn't want it. So the minute you introduce it into your body, your body's saying, hey, I don't want you in here, get out. So that's why you start gagging and start throwing up when you consume too much alcohol. Your body has an internal mechanism that's saying, I've got to get you out of this body, because if alcohol stays inside, you're not going to like the consequences. And by the way, and you're going to see this in a moment, you can actually drink yourself to death. So 0.18 to 0.30 is confusion. So dizzy, very emotional, altered sense of perception, decreased sense of pain, can't walk. So some of these kind of overlap. It's just going to be a higher degree of non-function. Next one is coma. And I've got less than 15%. What that's supposed to tell you is that most people cannot drink to this level. Okay? Most people. I'm sure your parents probably can't. I can't. Nor do I think you would want to. But an alcoholic. This is an alcoholic. Okay? Coma, abolished reflexes, subnormal temperature, loss of control of urine. Now, how many of you have seen the movie with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. I'm trying to think of what the name of the movie is. Is it A Star Is Born? No. I can't remember the name of the movie. But anyways, there's a part of the movie where he goes, she's getting an award, and he goes up to, and he's drunk, to congratulate her or to make a fool of himself or whatever, and he urinates at the award show. He was at this level. Okay, he was a raging alcoholic. That is true life, what you saw on that film. So if you saw that film, this is the stage that he's in. And then death. You can actually drink yourself to death. Yes, you can. So don't think it's all fun and games if you drink too much. Oh, by the way, let me go back a couple. All right. If you see someone that can't stand up and walk correctly, I want you to write this down. I want you to think about this, because I think deep down you know you're supposed to do this, but I just want to stress it. If you have friends, if you're at a party and they can't respond to you talking to them, they can't stand up, they can't walk, or like we just mentioned, if it looks like they've just peed their pants or whatever, be brave enough to call 911. They need medical help. Don't be the type of person that thinks, just get them home, someone watch them. They need medical help. There are a lot of college kids that should have called, EMTs to come out and take care of people at parties, and people have died at fraternities and sororities because of the heavy drinking, and they just thought, oh, they'll just sleep it off. It just doesn't always happen that way. So be smart and call 911. Okay? Will you get in trouble if you were drinking? Maybe. Will they get in trouble because they were drinking? Maybe, depending on where. But will they be alive? Okay? That's a tough decision. I told you. This is where you're going to have to really think things out. And usually if you're drinking, you're not making the best decisions. And I'll tell you a personal story. A classmate of mine from high school, we both, like I said, my parents don't drink. But the first time I ever tasted alcohol was with my best friend when I was a sophomore in high school. Hated the taste of it. I hated it so much that where we were outside, that I actually tipped the bottle over so it would tip over and the alcohol would spill all over the place and I wouldn't have to finish it. So I only had like half of it. But he liked it. He liked it a lot. And what happened through the next couple weeks, months, and then it turned out to be years, he continued to drink and party. I went the opposite way. He went to the party stage. He became an alcoholic. And here I am teaching people, don't drink and drive. Worked for the state for 5 years with their DWI program. Your life will take different turns. And you just never know if the grip of alcohol is going to grab you. And by the way, he did die from alcoholism in his 30s. It was a shame. He died alone in his bathroom because he drowned on his own vomit. Okay? And we both started the same day, had the same type of alcohol. He liked it, I didn't. You just never know where these drugs will take you. Let's take a look at alcohol in the brain. So we were talking a little bit about the brain earlier and how it affects the body. So let's take a look from the medical aspect from it.
It may be legal, but it is still a drug. Be safe, be sensible, know your limit. Alcohol is a drug too. Think before you drink. Your body belongs to you. The purpose of this presentation is to help you understand the impact that alcohol has on your brain and the damage it can do. Our goal is to provide you with information which will enable you to make informed choices in relation to safe alcohol consumption. Did you know? Healthy people metabolize alcohol at a fairly consistent rate. As a rule of thumb, a person will eliminate 1 standard drink or 10 mils of alcohol per hour. And remember, it's not how many drinks you have, but how much alcohol you consume. Several factors influence this rate, including gender, age, height, weight, general health, the presence of food in the stomach, the concentration of alcohol in the drink, and prescription or illicit drugs taken by the person. It's the blood alcohol concentration, or BAC, which is the key to why we are affected by alcohol. Basically, your blood alcohol concentration is the relationship between the total amount of alcohol in your system divided by total body water, because alcohol is dissolved and diluted in water. So that's also why drinking lots of water with any alcohol consumption is a really good thing. The BAC and the effects of alcohol go up when the body is taking in alcohol faster than it can metabolize it. For example, if you binge drink and consume a 750ml bottle of rum or 3 bottles of wine, that's around 26 standard drinks, between 6 p.m. and 2 a.m, your body will need until sometime around 6 p.m. the next day to process and get rid of the alcohol. And that's why driving or operating equipment the next day is not only illegal, but just crazy, particularly when you consider what this is doing to your brain. Let me explain. Alcohol enters the body and ends up in the stomach, at which point about 20% is absorbed immediately, and the other 80% is absorbed in the small intestine. The heart then pumps the absorbed alcohol to every part of the body, including the central nervous system, which consists of the brain and spinal cord, and it gets to the brain really fast. So that's why even after just 1 drink, you can feel lightheaded or relaxed. Alcohol acts primarily on the nerve cells within the brain and interferes with communication between nerve cells and all other cells, slowing everything down. And that's why when we drink even a little, we experience the effects of alcohol on our emotions, judgment, balance, memory, speech, and anger levels, just to name a few. Did you know that your brain is still developing until you're around 20 to 25? So we need to be really careful because alcohol can do some irreversible damage to various parts of our brains. For example, drinking affects the cerebral cortex, which controls our senses, and inhibitory centers, which is why when you drink, you become more talkative, more self-confident, and less socially inhibited. It also controls our thought processes, so alcohol affects our ability to make good judgment or think clearly. The brain's frontal lobes are important for planning, forming ideas, making decisions, and using self-control. So when alcohol affects the frontal lobes of the brain, you may find it hard to control emotions and urges, and you may act without thinking, and even sometimes become violent or act completely out of character. Does this sound familiar? The cerebellum is important for coordination, thinking, and being aware. So again, you may have trouble with these skills when alcohol affects the cerebellum. That's why people affected by alcohol sometimes can't walk properly or lose their balance and fall. The hippocampus is the part of the brain where memories are made. So when alcohol reaches the hippocampus, you may have trouble remembering something you just heard, or even worse, have a blackout and not be able to remember what you did last night. If alcohol damages the hippocampus, you may find it hard to learn or remember things in the future. The hypothalamus is a small part of the brain that does an amazing number of the body's housekeeping chores. After a person drinks alcohol, blood pressure, hunger, thirst, and the urge to urinate increases, while body temperature and heart rate decreases. And finally, the medulla controls the body's automatic actions, such as your heartbeat. It also keeps the body at the right temperature. Because alcohol chills the body, drinking a lot of alcohol outdoors in cold weather can cause a person's body temperature to fall below normal. This dangerous condition is called hypothermia. Your body belongs to you. Get the facts. Alcohol is unsafe for the developing brain. Alcohol can damage your brain forever. The long-term functioning and health of your brain depends on the choices you make today. Your responsible attitude toward alcohol can have a positive influence on your friends and family. Your body belongs to you. Take care of it. It's the only one you have.
So that gives you a little bit of a more detailed medical aspect of alcohol and how it affects the brain and the body. Let's talk about being in bad shape. Now, what I'd like you to do, part of your homework this weekend, because we're not going to be able to finish up the whole alcohol section. We'll have to do a little bit of it on Tuesday. So there's going to be a big break between tonight's class and Tuesday. I want you to find an article, something like the article you see right here. I want you to find an article where someone was arrested for drunk driving, and I want the BAC level to be in the article. This woman was driving, or at least she was behind the wheel of the car. I think she drove somewhere and just continued to drink, because I don't know anybody that could drink at this level. It is the highest level that's been recorded in South Dakota. And she blew up .708. 0.708. And I just gave you a slide that most people, die. Okay, death happens around a 0.45, 0.5, and she was a 0.7. Okay, not very many people could be at this level. Begs the question, why was she even in a car, let alone driving it? Okay, she needed medical help, and she's such a bad alcoholic. Once she was released from jail, after she was arrested, she got back into another vehicle a week later and stole the vehicle, and she had been drinking. This is why I wanted you to take a look at drinking and driving rules and laws and come up with what you think should happen. And some of you came up with some decent ones. Some of you still haven't handed it in. But you've got to remember is that we are constantly looking at new, innovative ways to change laws, to change behavior, to change attitudes. And it starts with you. You are the future. Okay? You're the ones that are going to be holding, city, becoming city officials or state officials, elected officials. And that's how our laws change. And they constantly should be changed, because if they're not working, what's the sense of still having them? Just to show you how bad it is, and can you believe this article I found? It's 16 years old now, that a person was so drunk and his passenger was so drunk that he stuck his head, because he was getting sick, he stuck his head out the passenger window, and the driver was so drunk he went off the edge of the road, and one of those wires that holds telephone poles up, he ran up against one of those wires, and he decapitated his passenger. Yet he still drove home, went into his house, went to bed. It wasn't until neighbors reported the blood as it trailed to the driveway that they found the car in the garage without a head on it. They had to go back and find on the side of the road where he was decapitated. How drunk are you that you don't even know that your passenger just lost his life? Some of the articles you're going to find will just baffle you. You're just going to go, how did this ever happen? You can't make this stuff up. This is like a horror movie. So I want you to, spend a little bit of time on the internet. And I want you to do some research. How bad is it out on the road? How bad is it people driving? Are they getting behind the wheel with 1 or 2 drinks? Or are we finding people in this state where they're probably blowing, in the 3s? This guy, okay, doesn't give what his BAC level is, but I bet you anything he was in the high 2s, low 3s. I'll bet. I bet you he was a raging alcohol too. What I want to, I'm not going to show the video here. I want you to write down that if you do have a problem with alcohol or drugs, seek help. Go to a drug counselor. Go to AA. Go to NA, Narcotics Anonymous. If you're religious, go to a pastor or a priest or somebody. Talk it out. don't try to do it on your own. And addiction can happen at any age. So to think that it can't happen to you at the age of 16, you're fooling yourself. And I don't believe that me telling you this, that if you do experiment with drugs or alcohol, that and all of a sudden you're going to have a light bulb come on tonight saying, you know what, I need help. I probably won't happen. But guess what? There might be a chance that you may start to question some of the activities that you're doing. Now, I know most of you now because I've driven with you for a little bit. You're a good group of drivers and students. I've really enjoyed this class. I have no problems with anybody. I don't know you, really personally, but I'm just assuming that you got your head on straight. You're doing well. But over the years, you've got to think, people in your class or upper class that have drug or alcohol problems. At one point, they did take driver's ed. At one point, they did. And I will tell you, there have been people that have come to class, not at Oyster River, when I taught at another high school, that were high on pot. And I actually had a student one Saturday get into the vehicle and try to drive after her parents had let her drink some margaritas at a picnic. And you could smell the alcohol in her breath. And her driving lesson lasted about 5 minutes until I figured out, okay, this is not normal, and we had to end it. So these things do happen, okay? And I just want to be part of the solution to make people realize it's not a life that you really want to do. So if you need help, find it. And the other thing, too, if anybody ever wants to, talk to me, ask me if I know anybody in the state that can help them out. They've been stopped or whatever, what's going to happen to me now. I'll help you out. I've had people contact me and they've been charged with DWI and they want to know what's going to happen to them now. I can talk you through it. It's been a long time since I've been with the state, but I basically know the process. And when I wasn't married, I started teaching driver's ed when I was 24. And I actually had a student when I first started teaching. They called and they said, Mr. Toll, I'm with a bunch of friends. My ride who got me here is now drinking, and I don't feel comfortable getting in the car with him. And I don't know who else is at this party. It was a party that she really didn't know many people. Can you, get me home? And this was at 11:30 at night. I went and picked up somebody from my driver's ed class, brought him home. I don't want you to get in a car with somebody that's been drinking. And now with Uber, so think about this, Lyft or Uber, there's no reason why you can't call and get a ride home. Be smart. Call somebody that will come to your aid, right? I don't want to show a lot of negative things with drinking and driving, but I'm going to show you Jackie's story. And Jackie is no longer with us. I just found out from a student that I had in class since this pandemic. They did some research for me because I asked. I said, I've shown this video over the years, but I really don't know what her life is like now. And I had a student do some research, and they found out she has passed away from cancer. But I want to show you, she was a college student down in Texas, and she was hit by a high school student, a male football player that had gone out to drink after a football game and hit her when she was with a bunch of friends. I want to show you her story, how devastating a person's life can be.
Some roads take us home. Some roads take us places we've never been. Some roads and some choices take us places we would never want to go. One September night in 1999, a high school senior named Reggie Steffi took this 4-lane road to get home.
In high school, I was the all-American guy. Worked hard and had some hopes and dreams to keep going on the college level. But my senior year, after the 3rd football game of the season, I was out at a party one night.
I had a few beers. I was not falling down drunk and weaving all over the place. But it was more than enough to impair me.
It was enough to cause Reggie to cross head-on into an oncoming lane of traffic. His SUV struck a car with 5 people inside. 2 people in the car died instantly. 2 suffered broken bones, and another person was trapped inside when the car caught fire. Other than a few bruises, Reggie wasn't hurt, but a blood test showed he had been drinking. He was tried and convicted for causing the deaths of 2 young women while he was driving drunk.
I'm 23 years old now, and I've been in prison for 3.5 years. There were a lot of life lessons that you learn, and in prison you tend to learn them a little bit quicker, just valuing freedom. You don't have a telephone to call your mom or call your best friend. You don't have email to go back and forth and communicate instantly. When you don't have those things, you realize how important a lot of things are to your life and how much you take them for granted. And when they're gone, they're gone.
Jacqueline Sabarito lost a lot that September night, too. She had come to Texas from her native Venezuela to improve her English. She was a passenger in the car that Reggie hit and was trapped in the burning wreckage. Somehow, she survived. Jackie lost her ears, her face, her hands, and her independence. She's had more than 50 operations. There are many more to come.
Sometimes the hardest thing for me to do in my life is fight with the depression, fight when I go out, and sometimes people look at me like an alien or something like that.
The crash totally changed Jackie's life. She fights pain every day. People point at her and stare. Her plans for college and a career are on hold. And inside a Texas prison, Reggie Steffi faces a life he never expected.
I hear a lot from my friends and what they're doing and where they've been and what's happening to them at college, and part of me misses that, misses what they're doing. My best friend just got married a few weeks ago, and seeing the pictures and seeing him and his bride and seeing everything that's changing and everybody else moving forward, and here I'm just kind of spinning my wheels in the same place, doing the same things every day, and everybody else is moving forward. It's a hard thing to deal with sometimes. You see everybody and everything changing around you, and there's really nothing you can do to stop it or to move along with them.
My second life, I could say, is completely different, completely. Of the 24 hours of the day, probably, I can say 1 or 2 hours. I'm pretty sad about my appearance, because I can say in those 2 hours, things that I couldn't do it with my hands, or when I get so warm inside my body because I can't sweat, or when I sit on the mirror, I get so sad.
I can't change it. I can't make it go away. And it's not something that I want to forget about. It's not something that I will ever forget about. Some people would want to and some people would try, but it's something that I live with every day. If you think ahead to what you're going to be doing, you can make the right decision. But once you've been out there drinking and partying, it does impair your judgment, and you may think differently, and you may think you're all right when you're really not, like I did. Looking back on September 19th, 1999, there are a number of things that I could have done to prevent this. The easiest is to not drink. Had I planned ahead and had someone sober with me, I wouldn't be in this situation. I could have called a cab and forked over $30 for a cab ride home and not been in this situation. I could have called my mom or my uncle and woke them up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't have been in this situation. 2 people would be alive, and Jacqueline would be about her life. And the easiest way to prevent that is decide who's driving tonight before you go to the party.
Reggie Steffi has been turned down for parole. He is scheduled to be released from prison in 2008 after spending 2,555 days behind bars. Jackie will spend the rest of her life recovering from injuries. She continues to speak out against the dangers of drinking and driving.
Pretty sad story. A couple things from it that I took away from it, why I like using it for class, is that it dealt with a high school student. He was in high school when this happened. He wasn't in his 20s where it was legal. He was doing it when it was illegal. And then it talked about what were his options. Getting a taxi, staying there, calling his parents, uncle or whatever. You have choices. But the other thing too, and I wanted you to change the laws, and if you haven't done it, this may help you kind of figure this out. After seeing what Jackie looked like and the pain and the suffering that she has to go through, and remember, she was burned 60% of her body, and she has $5 million worth of medical bills. We'll touch on that in a moment. But do you really feel 7 years is fair? Now, he killed 2 people, and he did this type of injury to Jackie. A $20,000 fine in 7 years. Now, this was filmed a long time ago. I'll tell you right now that he is out, and that $20,000 is probably already paid for. Doesn't take long once you get a good job to pay $20,000. I mean, goodness, that's cheaper than what 1 year of college is going to be for you guys. And what is necessary? What will change people's behavior? All right. What we've got to do is change people's behavior and attitudes before they get behind the wheel of the car. Because once they get behind the wheel of the car, it's really too late. But if they do choose to do something, we've got to make it so bad that other people will say, I hope this never happens to me, and I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen to me. And those people make sure that they've got things in place that it doesn't happen. Back to the $5 million, because we're going to talk next week about insurance. Just by the way, so you understand this, is that when someone hits you and they do damage to your car and you need medical help, you can sue them. You can get money from their insurance company, but eventually the money's going to run out from their insurance company. They will only pay up to whatever was on your insurance policy. Let's say that he had a $100,000 insurance policy. Once that $100,000 is paid by the insurance company doesn't help you out anymore. So who pays the $5 million? It's really Jackie's responsibility, even though she did nothing wrong. It's her body that they were doing the medical work to. She has to pay it. There's no way that anybody humanly possible can pay $5 million unless you're super mega rich. That would bankrupt probably 99% of everybody. $5 million worth of medical bills. So this is going to kind of lead into what we're going to talk about next week, is about what type of insurance policy do I really need. Now, I want to touch on a few other things. sometimes people, and I guess I'll show you this. This might take us pretty close to the end, and then we'll pick up drugs and penalties on Tuesday. It might be a good place to stop. But a lot of people that are involved in some type of a crash will drive away because they don't want to be responsible for it. So we call that a hit and run, because they know I'm drinking and driving. If I stay around and wait for the police, I'm going to get arrested. So they drive away, and they hope that the police won't even know. They'll just find their car and realize, maybe they slipped on ice or hydroplane or whatever, but the alcohol won't be part of the equation of why they hit another driver or hit a pedestrian. This is a story of a person that was so remorseful and he was so full of guilt that he actually went to YouTube and he did a confessional on YouTube about hitting an elderly man and killing him in a drunk driving related crash. So let me show you this testimonial of this individual, because it just weighed on him too heavily. So I give him credit for at least stepping up, but what he really should have done is pulled over the side of the road and waited that night. But here's his confession.
Welcome back to The Lead. Now the national lead. YouTube is where you go to see sneezing pandas or anchor bloopers or maybe the latest staged to look totally accidental viral video. But it's generally not where you'd expect someone to reveal their deepest, darkest secret, one that could send them to prison for a very long time. But that is just what happened, and it stunned even law enforcement officers.
My name is Matthew Cordell, and on June 22nd, 2013, I hit and killed Vincent Canzani. This video will act as my confession. When I get charged, I will plead guilty and take full responsibility for everything I've done to Vincent and his family. If I took a different route, maybe I would get a reduced sentence and maybe I would get off. But I won't dishonor Vincent's memory by lying about what happened. By releasing this video, I know exactly what it means. I'm handing the prosecution everything they need to put me away for a very long time. But I'm willing to take that sentence for just one reason, and that reason is so I can pass this message on to you. I beg you, and I say the word beg specifically, I'm begging you, please don't drink and drive. Don't make the same excuses that I did. Don't say it's only a few miles, or you've only had a few beers, or you do it all the time, it'll never happen to you, because it happened to me. And all of those are just excuses to make yourself feel better about a decision that you know is wrong and could cost lives. I can't bring Mr. Canzani back, and I can't erase what I've done. But you can still be saved. Your victims can still be saved.
A stunning video. Matt Cordell's drunk driving confession pardon me, has been viewed more than 200,000 times on YouTube. He has not been charged, but prosecutors in Franklin County, Ohio say they hope to indict him for aggravated vehicular homicide. Cordell says his lawyers told him there was a way to avoid jail time, but he says he released the video anyway in the hopes of preventing others from driving drunk. I want to bring in CNN senior legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin. Jeffrey, this is obviously highly unusual, but is there any way that releasing this video could end up helping Cordell in the eyes of the court?
There is a way. I mean, I don't want to view this too cynically. I mean, this does seem to be a genuine effort at contrition on his part. But, you know, one thing judges take into consideration in sentencing, they should take into consideration, is acceptance of responsibility, acknowledgement of what you've done. And he has, in a very public and dramatic way. It's certainly the first confession I've ever heard that has music in it. But it's so he could get a lesser sentence than he might have otherwise gotten, but he also might have avoided prosecution in some way, and he's obviously not trying to do that. So I think we should take it as face value as an attempt to do the right thing.
And Jeffrey, aggravated vehicular homicide, that's the charge he faces. How much jail time could he potentially face?
Oh, 10 years, 15 years. You know, again, there is a certain amount of discretion in how it's charged and what the judge does. But this is a very serious crime. Ever since Mothers Against Drunk Driving really raised the nation's consciousness about this back in the 1970s, every state has raised penalties on drunk driving, especially those that end in a death. So, I mean, he is looking at very serious time in prison.
There are, of course, those who would say, cynically perhaps, that if Cordell gets leniency from the court, it could inspire copycat stunts in the future on YouTube as a ploy for lighter sentences. Any thoughts?
You know, I like to think of myself as cynical as the next reporter, and certainly, or as cynical as the next lawyer. I am not really bracing myself for a parade of people confessing to crimes that they haven't even been charged with yet. Because of this video. I think this is a moment where we should take what this young man says as at face value, let the judge consider it along with all the circumstances in the case, and I'm not worried that this is going to set a bad precedent. If anything, I think this is a good precedent for people who feel guilty and want to try to do the right thing.
All right, Jeffrey Toobin, thanks for joining us.
So if you haven't done the changing of laws, okay, I want you to think about what should happen to people that transport alcohol, open container. If they get convicted of drunk driving, should they spend 20 years in jail? What should the fine be? What should the education be? So if you haven't done, and some of you, it's just a couple sentences usually, what I'm looking for, I want you to complete that homework. So after tonight's class, it should be a little bit easier to do. So that's what I want you to do. The other thing that I would like you to do is to make sure that you've read Chapter 18. I think the alcohol questions are ready for tonight. I'll put them on the remote Facebook. If not, I'll send you a link to it. And here's the other thing I want you to do. Remember when we talked about the highest BAC level? Remember, I want you to do some research. I want you to find an article that has a drunk driving crash, and I want to see what the BAC level is. So you can send me the link. You can take a picture of it and send it along to me. But try to find something and see what's happening out there on the roadways. Is it people just having one or two drinks, or do we have a real serious problem about drinking and driving? We're going to get into a little bit on drugs, and I think we're going to save that for next Tuesday. So we're going to probably start Tuesday's class dealing with the drugs and the penalties that the state of New Hampshire has, and then we'll get into insurance. So Tuesday will be insurance, and there is a form that we're going to do as an activity. Read Section 9 in the manual, because that deals with being involved in a collision and filling out a crash report. So that's going to be part of our activity on Tuesday. If you have outstanding work, this is your chance to do it and finish it and get it into me. So look at the sheet. Remember, most everything that I'm giving you is coming off of, remember, the sheet that I gave you when you picked up your material. So make sure you take a look at that. So we only have 3 classes next week. So we're halfway through the alcohol, or really 3/4 of the way through. And then next week we'll finish up with a few more subjects. Continue to get your driving in with your parents. You need your observation form signed by your parents given back to me. So I don't know if I put it on Facebook, but I'll do that again. If you can't download it, then I can give you a hard copy the next time that we drive. Even though we don't have class on Monday next week, remember, we're going to go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I will be driving on Monday. So if weather is good, we're going to drive. So some of you haven't driven in a while. So get a hold of me if you want to drive, and we'll try to pick things up from there. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Have a safe New Year's. After tonight's subject, I hope no one's going out partying New Year's Eve with friends. If you are, you're having diet soda. So have a good time, be safe, and we'll see you during your driving lesson or next Tuesday, okay? And study. I mean, we'll get the final next week, so you might as well review over the weekend if you got some time. Go over your notes and start studying for the final. Other than that, we'll see you. Good night.